February 27th.
This month in Passport on the PBS Video app, your on-demand library for the best of PBS.
This is the inside story of a royal's favorite way to travel.
This is how the other half live.
Political networks were evaporated overnight.
It is a warning to us to prevent this from happening again.
Enter the world of pop art phenom Keith Haring. He created his art for everybody.
These and other shows from your PBS station are available with Passport on the PBS Video app. Download it today.
You're watching New England Public Media, WGBY Springfield.
Some of the world's most remarkable animals seem set to disappear forever.
1 million species are now threatened with extinction.
We have a moment when we can change our world.
I believe together we can create a better future.
Tune in or stream March 31st at 8 p.m. on NEPM.
Coming up, stories we're connecting you with tonight. We speak to a local man who has witnessed decades of the nation's racial history.
It wasn't until recently that people are proud that they were descendant. But when we grew up, kids in school say, "Oh, you're from a slave. You're just a slave."
Longtime Holyoke Mayor Alex Morris on his decision not to seek re-election.
I think it's also healthy for democracy. Elected positions aren't lifetime appointments.
And what exactly does it mean to short a stock? We'll explain.
I would not call this investing. I would call this more akin to speculation.
Details on those stories and more up next on Connecting Point.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for Connecting Point. I'm 𝗖𝗵𝘃𝗶𝘃. February is Black History Month, and tonight we speak to a local man who has witnessed decades of the nation's racial history, from the grief and glory of the civil rights movement to the election of the first Black president, and most recently, the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. Now in his 9th decade of life, Winstead resident Daniel Smith shared some of his memories with producer Dave Frazier, which include growing up in Northern Connecticut and attending Springfield College.
On the campus of Springfield College in March of 2014, a special event was held that brought together 3 men, all of whom had attended Martin Luther King's 1963 "I Have a Dream" speech in Washington. One of those men was Dan Smith, a 1960 graduate of Springfield College. Professor of Communications at the college, Martin Dobrow, was the moderator for the event and recalls how Dan's story piqued his interest.
Dan is a constitutionally very modest person who I don't think thinks of his own life as being anything particularly extraordinary. But to me, he's really sort of like the Forrest Gump of civil rights. He has just been everywhere. This is someone who attended the March on Washington, who walked with Dr. King from Selma to Montgomery, who worked in Alabama at the height of the civil rights movement and had some very harrowing encounters there. Ultimately, someone who attended the inaugurations of Barack Obama. So he's really lived the trajectory of the American racial story in what to me feels like a pretty unique way. And so it seemed to me really the vehicle for a great story.
Dobrow wrote about Smith last June in a story that appeared in the online publishing platform Medium. What makes this story even more unique is that at the age of 88, Dan Smith is the living son of a slave.
There had to be very special circumstances for this to happen. One is that his dad had to procreate quite late. Dan came into the world in 1932, so his dad was almost 70 at the time. And then Dan himself, would have to live a pretty lengthy life. And that, was obviously true back in 2014, and here he is still going strong.
Dan spent his youth growing up in Winstead, Connecticut. He was just 6 when his father was killed in a car accident, leaving his mother Clara to raise Dan and his 5 siblings in a town of not many black people.
We were always embarrassed and ashamed that we were descendants of slaves. It wasn't until recently that people are proud that they were descendant. But when we grew up, kids in school say, "Oh, you're from a slave. You're just a slave."
Despite Dan's family history, he was able to get a good education in town, but as the only black kid in class, Dan had to learn to adapt to the white world.
I couldn't get a haircut in Windsor because they wouldn't cut black people's hair. So I had to take a bus to Hartford, take a cab to the barber shop, and it cost me $15. Because that was, to me, that was a lot of money.
After high school, Dan served a tour of duty in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. He worked as an operating room technician, and it was here that he developed an interest in public health. In 1955, when Hurricane Diane roared through northern Connecticut, Dan, who was an excellent swimmer, performed an act of heroism that is still remembered to this day, saving a drowning man from the turbulent Mad River.
The interesting thing was everyone thought I had drowned, or we had drowned. So when I finally got home, I had to walk home, got home. I walked in my mother's house, and she said, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "The police said you were dead." And I said, "No, I'm not dead." She said, "Well, put the insurance papers back."
The next year, funded in part by the GI Bill, Dan went to Springfield College, and even though his life was shaped by slavery and racism, he was able to push ahead. He joined the wrestling team, sang in the Glee Club, and was elected president of the Student Council. In August of 1963, Dan, along with a white friend from Connecticut, drove to the nation's capital to participate in the March on Washington.
I am happy to join with you today.
Although Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech was powerful, it was the speech of young John Lewis that resonated with Dan.
We must get in this revolution and complete the revolution. For in the Delta of Mississippi, in southwest Georgia, in the Black Belt of Alabama, in Harlem, in Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, and all over this nation, the black masses on the march for joy and freedom.
So when he came on, it was just spellbounding. I mean, King was incredible. But John really spoke from the heart about getting things done now. Don't wait.
Dan would take the words that were spoken that day to heart and follow his own dreams. He enrolled in the veterinary program at Tuskegee Institute, a historically black university in Alabama.
I mean, it was a whole new world for me in Tuskegee. All black community. We had 1 or 2 whites on the campus. All the guys in my veterinary class at the time had witnessed some serious discrimination or violence. Either they had it or their parents had it. So I sort of got a very quick education.
This career path was short-lived. Because of his leadership abilities, Dan was encouraged to work towards the cause of civil rights.
That was one of those, forks in the road, 2 roads diverged in the yellow wood kind of moment in his life. And he made what was a powerful choice and, wound up working very intensely with the civil rights movement down in Alabama. Had a couple of harrowing encounters while he was there. Once chased within a few inches of his life by the Ku Klux Klan on a dark road in Alabama. And so I think those years were very important to Dan. Also a small chunk of his life, but an important chunk.
Throughout his life, Dan has witnessed decades of this nation's racial history, from the injustice of Jim Crow to the grief and glory of the civil rights movement to the election of the first black president.
When I was growing up, the talk within the black community or in the white community, and especially they'd say in 20 years it's all going to be different. And when Obama was elected, Loretta and I went to Obama's inauguration. When he came on to make his speech, I mean, I was just dripping, crying. The guy next to me who was white was crying. Everyone in the row was it was so emotional. Loretta was crying, right? It was just so emotional because we all felt the same thing. This is finally here. But it has changed, and not for the better.
At age 88, there is no question that Dan has witnessed moments of national shame and shimmering possibilities. He retired in 1994, and in 2006 wed his second wife, Loretta Newman, at the National Cathedral, where Dan served as the head usher, escorting United States presidents into major national events. Today, at his home in northern Washington, he and Loretta are working on Dan's memoirs.
I think it's important for what my memoirs, I hope, will show is the path I've taken from birth to where I am now, and the path in a white world. My philosophy has always been, life has no obstacles, only challenges. And although I've never had a fight in my life, I was always ready to do battle.
There will be a change of leadership for at least 2 major Western Massachusetts cities after this fall's elections. Mayors Alex Morse of Holyoke and David Narkowitz of Northampton have announced their intentions not to seek re-election. Both mayors have guided their cities through some challenging times, including the COVID-19 pandemic. Connecting Point's Ray Herschel talked with each mayor about their decision to step down and future plans, and his conversation this evening is with outgoing Holyoke Mayor Alex Morse.
I always felt like a decade was a long enough period of time to make a difference, to leave a lasting imprint, and getting us closer to some of the goalposts and goals that we set out to accomplish 10 years ago. And I feel like in many ways, we've accomplished those goals, and I think it's time, frankly, for a new perspective. And I think it's also healthy for democracy. Elected positions aren't lifetime appointments, and I think it's important to have new perspectives and new voices over time. I turned 32 in January, and I'm excited about what's next. So,
as you look back at your 10 years as mayor of Holyoke, Alex, what do you feel is your most proud achievement or your major accomplishments that you're most proud of?
When I think about what I'm most proud of, it's standing up to make City Hall and the city of Holyoke an inclusive, welcoming place that focuses on equity. We now have a city government, from department heads to commissioners and volunteers, that reflects the diversity of our population. One of the first things I did as mayor that remains to be one of the things I'm most proud of is frankly opening up a needle exchange program that has saved countless lives here in the city of Holyoke to focus on harm reduction and tackle the opioid epidemic. I'm proud of the fact that we've made Holyoke a sanctuary city to protect undocumented immigrants. I'm proud of the fact that we closed the state's last coal plant and transitioned closer to 100% renewable energy here in the city. But again, really, it's opening up the doors of City Hall to communities and people that didn't feel like they could be part of their government.
Well, your last election when you ran for Congress against Richard Neal was a bruising campaign and bruising election, obviously. You were quoted as saying after that election that you would consider running again. Is that an option for you at this point? Would you consider running for Congress again?
I would say it's very unlikely that I would mount another campaign for Congress in the near future. I want to look forward, continue giving back to my community, and I think I need a break from being the candidate.
Well, we all know what a difficult campaign that was and what a controversial one it was. In retrospect, as you look back at that campaign, Mr. Mayor, how much do you feel this whole issue with the controversy over UMass and reaching out to students there through social media impacted that campaign? Was that a game changer?
Yeah, I think it impacted the campaign. You know, it was a grueling 14-month campaign. We crisscrossed the district, and I don't want to get caught up in the noise that happened at the end. But I think we ended on a high note. I mean, we engaged thousands of voters. We got nearly 42% of the vote, and got to know and build relationships and give a voice to many people that hadn't been part of government on that level. And I frankly ran because, after being mayor for so many years, I wanted to help communities like Holyoke that have been forgotten about by our federal government.
Now, there's some serious issues and challenges, obviously, facing you over your next year before you leave office. Certainly one of them is the COVID-19 pandemic. At this point, how has that impacted the city of Holyoke in terms of public health, in terms of economic development, and where does Holyoke stand now as far as COVID-19 is concerned and getting your citizens vaccinated?
Yeah, so we're all hands on deck. Like a lot of local communities, the issue stems from the state on down. There's a lack of supply. Happy to see the Biden administration moving quickly to supply states with higher supplies of vaccines. And we're doing the best we can to vaccinate as many people as possible. But frankly, we're just waiting for guidance from the governor and from the Department of Public Health as to when we can really vaccinate other categories of folks. And so unfortunately, it's been slower than we'd like and more restrictive than we'd like in Western Massachusetts, including Holyoke. I don't think is getting as much attention as Eastern Mass. I'm grateful for folks in the state delegation for raising their voice.
Certainly, one of the most difficult issues has been the Holyoke Soldiers Home and the 76 veterans who lost their lives due to COVID. We are just learning that Governor Baker is going ahead with a bond bill now to construct a new Holyoke Soldiers Home. Your thoughts on that and the need for a new home? It's long overdue. It's been divested from for years, and really happy to see that a plan is advancing to invest in a new facility. Thankful to the advocates that pushed to increase the number of beds from the preliminary plan that the state released. And I also just want to note, a bond bill is great, but it's a bond bill. Once you get into a bond bill, you still need the authorization to spend that money. There is hundreds of millions of dollars in bond bills over the last decade that was never actually allocated to be spent. And so my hope is that it starts with the bond bill and then quickly is authorized by the governor to actually spend that money and make a new home possible as soon as we possibly can. And Mayor, as you get set to leave office at the end of the year, any final message, any thoughts for the people of Holyoke? Through the ups and downs, the challenges, the successes, I just again want to thank the people of Holyoke for trusting in me, for electing me 4 times to be your mayor, and I look forward to continue giving back to my community in other ways, and watching this election in the months to come for my successor.
In December, the first snow of the season allowed Maple Corner Farm in Granville to open early for cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. Last spring, the farm's maple sugaring season was cut short due to the state's COVID-19 restrictions. And this year, visitors will encounter new changes, from how they purchase tickets to the amount of people allowed in the lodge and social distancing in the rental shop. But despite the restrictions, many people are still eager to get outside and enjoy the winter recreation. Producer Dave Frazier brings us the story.
An early December snowstorm followed by mild temperatures had people out on the trails at Maple Corner Farm in Granville. This working farm has been in continuous operation since 1812, and since 1984, during the winter months, the farm has offered cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. This year, with COVID restrictions, they have had to make some modifications.
Put in a new outdoor ticket booth so we can sell directly to folks, and they can go straight from there right to the trails rather than coming into the lodge. Cut down on our indoor seating, and pretty much are not doing much as far as food. We are serving some drinks and snacks and all that.
Farmers are pretty ingenuitive. We have to go with the times, whether we like it or not. We kind of curse and moan sometimes, but in the end, we mostly win out in the battle of changes. But this year has been a year of changes from the very beginning, so that we're still here and we plan on being here, good, bad, or times.
The farm has an elevation of about 1,400 feet and sits at the foothills of the Berkshires. Like most farms still in business today, they have learned to diversify. Maple sugaring is what they are best known for, but they also have pick-your-own blueberries in the summer and run a small beef operation. But on this day, it was the newly fallen snow that had brought people out.
You know, we're inside all week working like a lot of people and just need to get outside. And we were going to go downhill skiing, but everything was already booked up, so we decided to come out here. But absolutely, being outside, fresh air, it's good for you, your brain, good for your body, and just helps clear your head.
John and Roseanne Ppavo came up from Connecticut and brought a picnic lunch, which they set up out of the back of their car.
Normally we would use the lodge, we would eat in the lodge, but because of COVID, we're having picnics basically. We lucked out, we have a very nice warm day. Cross-country skiing is perfect for COVID, because the only time you're really near somebody is at a junction of a trail, but for the most part you're a good 10 feet away from everybody.
My son's home from Colorado, and I have a pair of cross-country skis that I have yet to baptize. So we Googled the nearest place to go cross-country skiing from where we live, and we're here today to do it. And we're ready to go.
It's a little less hilly than up in Colorado, but I'm just kind of hoping to see some good scenery, maybe a gorgeous sunset, but just it's nice to get out and outdoors and just have a good time.
Owner Leon Ripley says the past few years of snowfall have been lackluster at best, so getting an early storm brings hope and promise for a good season.
Last year we actually got a storm in December. We got 2 days, and of course it came and went in about 4, and that was really the end of. We didn't get any holiday season or mid-January skiing until the very last week of January. So hopefully that we can get the restaurant open up here, and we'll get rolling again.
In January, shares of stock for the video game retail company GameStop shot up as traders in an online Reddit forum sought to block an attempt to short sell the stock of the company. The practice of shorting a stock being a way that a trader can profit from falling stock prices. The story became a national sensation and brought the short selling of stocks to prominence. But what exactly is shorting a stock, and how does it work? Matt Farkas, the head of fixed income at St. Germain Investments in Springfield, explained the complex subject when he spoke with me recently. And full disclosure, St. Germain is a sponsor of New England Public Media.
So short selling, you can think of it as it's a bet that a stock is going to go down in price, and it's a way for an investor to make money on that belief. So an investor could believe that ABC stock, it's currently trading at $10, but really thinks the true fundamental value is $5. So what a short seller can do is go to his broker, borrow shares, sell those shares, and if at the current market price of $10, and if the short seller is right and the stock trades down to $5, they will buy back those shares to cover essentially the loan that they have, and they will make that profit of $5 a share. So if they're right and the stock price goes down, they make money. But importantly, short selling it's a risky thing to do, because if the stock does not go down and it actually goes up in price, you start to lose money. And unlike when you're buying a stock, investing a stock, the most you can lose is the amount that you can put into it, because the lowest a stock can go is 0. But there's no upper limit to a stock price, and so theoretically your losses are infinite. And so short selling is certainly not something that I would recommend for the average person to do on their own. It's inherently very risky, and it involves a certain amount of expertise around that.
Now, the GameStop stock frenzy has garnered a lot of attention in the past couple of weeks, where amateur investors organized against short sellers and caused them to have losses because they increased the stock market value of companies. Why has this garnered so much attention?
Yeah, I think it's garnered a lot of attention because it's such an interesting story. And in a lot of ways, it's a modern story because it involves social media. Short selling has been around for a long time, and the situation that GameStop found itself in was what's known as a short squeeze, and I can talk about that a little bit more. But short squeeze phenomenons do happen in markets from time to time, so that certainly is not new either. GameStop specifically is a company that some hedge funds had identified as a stock that was overvalued, at least in their belief, and they thought it was going to be going down, primarily because it's a mall-based retailer selling video games, and both of those areas are areas that I think long-term are challenged, and they ended up shorting this stock in a very aggressive way. It happened to be noticed by a group of investors, and the investor really spearheading this actually has a local connection, believe it or not. He is a financial advisor, or former financial advisor for a locally based national insurer. And this gentleman really led the charge in informing people of this massive short position, and was really successful in using social media to get his opinion out there and get people behind his opinion, and really investing in GameStop in a massive way, which caused this short squeeze, because as more investors bought GameStop, it pushed the price up. Volkswagen actually went through this scenario, I think in 2011, so about a decade or so ago. Similar type of situation where there were investors that were really short the stock. It was noticed, and investors started to buy the stock in a big way, causing this short squeeze. Short squeezes tend to be rather short phenomenon, as we're seeing with GameStop. It's, we're a few weeks into this, and the stock price has come down dramatically from its high points. And these things have a way of burning themselves out.
Are there any ethical implications in attempting to profit off of somebody's failure?
Shorting is a critical part to the market. There are definitely academic studies that point to markets that have participants that are betting on it going up in price as well as down in price improves markets. There's more investors as part of this, so there's better liquidity, so you can get in and out of those investments easier. While I can certainly understand people viewing it as problematic or maybe even un-American or something like that, I understand those viewpoints. But again, they are critical market participants and actually do improve markets.
Now, for people who have taken up an interest in the stock market, especially after recent events, what would you tell them to be aware of?
I would not call this investing. I would call this more akin to speculation. And speculation may, there's nothing inherently wrong with speculating. It's a part of the marketplace. And, if done right, it can be effective. But speculation should be done on a very limited basis. You certainly don't want to handle your 401k or your retirement funds as poker chips. It's really important to, if you're going to be participating in any type of speculation, you do it in a way that's very limited, in a way that if you do lose dramatically, it's not going to throw off your long-term financial goals.
That does it for Connecting Point for February 19th, 2021. Remember, you can always find the stories that you saw tonight, as well as exclusive features, digital-only content, and more online anytime at nepm.org/connectingpoint. And please join us again next Friday night at 6 right here on New England Public Media for more stories of the people, places, and ideas that matter most to Western New England. I'm 𝗖𝗵𝘃𝗶𝘃𝗏. Be safe and have a good night.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Today, whites have every hour on television. Blacks have none.
James Baldwin.
Patti LaBelle. Toni Morrison. Al Green.
Earth, Wind & Fire.
Stevie Wonder.
Yo, this is every day.